Good morning, everybody. How is everybody this morning? It's Tuesday. It's good to be back doing daily devotionals. I got up this morning and I'm back on track doing the things I need to do. I am on day 2 of my intermittent fasting. Day 1 was rough. When you do it for a while and then you stop and you try to pick it up again, it's tough. It's really tough. Astra is really happy about us being home. I really don't think that she liked that we were gone for a week and a bit. And then now that we've come home, well, we came home and then we left again for a full day. And so every morning since then, she really wants to pin me down in the morning. She comes and sits in my lap. It's not funny for her, I'm sure. I'm sure that it's quite traumatic, but part of me is a little tickled that she missed us, because sometimes you wonder, right? Like, do you really miss me? But she did. She really missed us. So today's card is called Quente, Sweet Paradox of Empowering Grace. And it's got a hummingbird on it. And I think those are Joshua trees, but I'm not entirely certain. Maybe the book will tell us. Okay. Quente, the sky jewel of the Andes, brings you the hummingbird, who bears the soul medicine of spiritual grace, the evolution to conquer any obstacle, and the extraordinary power of the heart. The concept of spiritual grace can be challenging to the mind. We often don't realize just how much we have conditioned to subconsciously demand that progress in our lives be difficult, even while at a conscious level we bemoan the struggle and wish that things could be easier. We want help, but we believe that we are unworthy or have to earn our success, whilst the divine wants us to engage and participate in the fulfillment of our destiny. If we do not surrender our arrogance and learn how to surrender spiritually, we will never fulfill our potential. There is a way to allow for spiritual grace so that any obstacles can be surmounted, even when the invisible ones that seem to block your progress from some unknown source. It's not a question of needing to become more powerful, but rather your relationship to the divine needs to become vitalized. Then grace can flow, creating success in the same situations that would have otherwise defeated you. When the hummingbird brings you medicine, you have a high spiritual destiny, one that is going to triumph against the apparently insurmountable odds that are stacked against you. Hummingbirds have the highest metabolic rate of any mammal on Earth. And these remarkable creatures have an exceptionally high need for oxygen and have adapted to live in the Andes Mountains, flying 15,000 feet above sea level. Sorry. This medicine of the hummingbird brings a subtle adjustment within the blood or life force in how it receives and processes the spirit. This in turn leads to extraordinary and heightened abilities. Trust the incredible possibilities that are birthed through the union of the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine energies within you. I think it's really cool. This book says to pray with courage and confidence for your rightful divine inheritance and allow your bold heart and loving soul to believe in your beautiful, hope-filled destiny. And we've talked about blueprint before, but I think that the biggest statement here is the concept of spiritual grace can be challenging to the mind. We've been conditioned to subconsciously demand that our progress be hard, but it doesn't have to be hard. You just have to revitalize your spiritual connection with the divine. I was reading this, and I had kind of stopped for a minute, and I watched a few things on these little shorts that come up on YouTube. I don't have TikTok, and I have no intention of ever getting TikTok. It's a Chinese-owned company. There's a whole documentary about it. I'm not going to go into that. But there was a short, and this woman who, she has 3 kids, and her oldest son was having meltdowns, and her family made a disparaging comment about his behavior, and 2 years passed, and his meltdown, he was better. Basically, he had matured, and his brain had, children's brains grow, right? And when his siblings, she's got 2 twins that were born right about the time he was having the original meltdowns, and her family was criticizing, he was a very compassionate young man and was able to help his siblings when they have their meltdowns. And there's a couple layers in this story that I'm not going to regale the entire story, because you could go find it on the reels, but it bubbled up for me this card, because I don't remember some things, and then I remember other things, and that's just kind of how my brain works. But I know that when I was a smaller person, and I have a sister, and she's 4.5 years younger than me, and there were times that I was truly awful to her, and I know that some of that came from how I was treated when I was small, because I was not positively reared by one of my parents. And so my responses were quite toxic. And I did that to my sister. I was very toxic towards my sister. I was not compassionate. I was not full of grace. And I went and lived with my grandma for a while, and I have an aunt who's like literally 5 years older than me, and she was toxic towards me. And during that time, something clicked. I knew, because something my grandma said, and I don't even remember exactly what she said, but I remember my aunt being horribly mean to me. And I remember somehow in the conversation it was pointed out to me that, well, she's only treating you how you treat your sister, basically, and how all of the siblings have treated each other at different age gaps. And she was relating it to an age gap and personality differences and just how people grow. But I remember thinking, no, there's more here. I need to work on me. There's something here that I need to work on so that I don't do that. And I can't say that I figured it all out, right? I was a kid. I was in like 5th or 6th grade or something. I was a kid. I totally didn't figure it out then. But when I got pregnant with my eldest son, there was a moment in that pregnancy, and I don't really remember what the catalyzing moment was, but the realization that I needed to work on me to be a better parent. I needed to conscientiously approach my children's upbringing with grace and awareness and spirituality and kindness and compassion. And when I went to college, I took slew of education classes and early childhood development classes, not because I really wanted to be an elementary school teacher. I mean, I have a K-12 degree because I took all those classes, because I wanted to know, how does the brain work? How can I parent knowing more about how we grow and how our brains work? And I only had my kids till they were 5, 6 years old. They went and lived with their well, they left. They didn't stay with me for all of their years. But there were things that I kind of got criticized for as a parent when I was raising my kids. I would have people go, "Why are you doing that? You should be tougher on them," or "Oh, you're doing the single parent mistakes." And a lot of it was, I talked to my kids like they were people, because they were people. I was also very conscientious and aware of, if there's a meltdown, there's a reason. Thor had meltdowns they were awful. And I took him to get assessed, and lo and behold, he's got sensory processing disorder. Oh, great. Now I have tools. I can help him with that. Lifting heavy objects, encouraging him to ride his bike, anything that gets those chemicals going in the brain that he can't produce normally. Understanding different stages of why they do what they do, and approaching parenting with awareness and compassion, and knowing that along the way I had to tell my kids that their connection to the divine was theirs. We did things like we did full moon rituals, and we did seasonal rituals, and I included my kids. And when my kids had past life memories that bubbled up, I let them tell me about it. I encouraged them to share that. Thor barely spoke English until he was like, I don't know, he was late developing language in some ways because he spoke a totally different language. And I didn't understand it, but I let him communicate with me. I encouraged him to communicate how he wanted to communicate. I think that it's really important, and I don't know why that particular video with this particular card cascaded the way it did in my head. But one of the other things that kind of cascaded was going back to my sister, the relationship with my sister, because of the emotional manipulation and abuse and some of the things that happened when I was a kid, the physical abuse, the emotional, the psychological abuse. I don't have a relationship with my sister. It's awful. I'm the big sister, and I did at several points try to repair, but this is the kicker. She is her own person, right? And each person has to come to a place in their own awareness of recognition of poor behavior and poor reactions and do the work. I've done as much work as I can on my own, right? I have also recognized that in my growth and in my work, I'm not going to have a relationship with my mother because it's always going to be toxic. She cannot grow past a certain place. And that's okay. I can live my life, and I can give her that grace, and I can give her that compassion. And I can also recognize that forgiveness does not give permission for it to continue. And my sister, right or wrong, is very much a clone of my mom in so many ways. And again, I have recognized my culpability in her behavior because I was a child and I didn't know any better. And as an adult, I have, again, you can give forgiveness to yourself and to others, but forgiveness does not continue to allow poor behavior in your life. And there was something I read not very long ago, and it was a comment about the black sheep The black sheep is the one who recognizes the trauma and recognizes the offness about things and works really hard to fix it and repair. And I have done everything I know to do to work on myself and pursue the hard work that I know I'm in this world to do to help other people. And I help as many people as I possibly can without burning my own candle out, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be able to help my family. My chosen family surrounds me with love and compassion and grace. My chosen friends, my chosen family who are not blood, have accepted me for all my weirdness and all of my gifts and all of my uniqueness and encourage me to do the hard work, write my book, see clients, teach and heal and work with people. You have to find your own path, right? You have to find your own path of grace. And your path of grace is not encouraging the difficult stuff to stick to you. It's encouraging your connection with the divine, opening that connection with the divine and allowing yourself to grow. And that's hard. Growth is so hard and you make mistakes. I went through a huge grief cycle about my loss of family many years ago. And it would bubble up every once in a while. I would think I'm done. Okay, I'm done grieving. It's all done. And then it would bubble up again. And I'd really sit with it going, why now? And I realized that what they don't talk about in grief is a cycle of emotions that are processed in tiny little bits at a time. Even the biggest hurt, even the biggest pain can't be processed and swallowed in one big gulp. The shamanistic way is very much about the journey. And part of the journey is you walk a little while and you take a sip of water. And you walk a little while and you take a sip of water. And you walk a little while and you take a sip of water. And you look at the birds in the trees and you watch the stream and you look at the animals in the field and you stop and you take a drink of water. You slowly become aware of your environment again. That is the grief cycle. And you can have something happen 40 years ago and be in your 50s and still have moments where it washes over you. Take a sip of water of the divine. Acknowledge the feeling, acknowledge where it comes from, give yourself grace, and allow yourself to heal. Today, I had a little bubbling up and a little grief about my sister. She's not a bad person. There will always be a part of me that remembers looking at her in her crib and going, she's a little person and she's divine and she's beautiful. And I can look at that memory and know that my soul, even as a child, remembering that moment is beautiful, right? It doesn't mean she's not beautiful now. It doesn't mean that she's not a good person. Her soul is like everybody else's. It's beautiful. We all have a beautiful soul. But our life paths are not meant to be woven together. And I'm okay with that. I can still own and grieve my culpability as a wounded child in shaping her, because I was a wounded child. I was very damaged. I remember talking to my grandma not very long ago, and well, this conversation was actually probably it was a while ago, actually. And she said, I always watched your first reactions, because your first reactions were 100% on. It was when you started second guessing and the fear came in that things got kind of turned around. And it reinforced what she'd been trying to tell me since I was a little kiddo. Always trust that first instinct. Always trust that first emotion. It's the right one. So I guess in sum, today's card kind of went all the way around the rosemary bush, and it didn't tell me if the tree was the Joshua tree. But what I got out of this was the concept of spiritual grace can be challenging to the mind. We often don't realize just how much we have been conditioned to subconsciously demand that progress in our lives be difficult, even whilst at a conscious level we bemoan the struggle and wish things could be easier. We want help and we believe we are unworthy. The divine wants us to engage and participate in the fulfillment of our destiny. If we do not surrender our arrogance and learn how to surrender spiritually, we will never fulfill our potential. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. It is not a question of needing to become more powerful, but rather your relationship to the divine needing to become more vitalized. I love that. So I'll post it in the comments, but we're at 21 minutes and I get more than 22 minutes. It takes forever for it to upload. I'll work on a little prayer and I'll put it in the comments for you. So have a blessed day, my friends, and allow yourself the grace to forgive yourself and allow yourself to grow. Connect with the divine, get outside, connect to Mother Earth. She wants us to heal. She wants us to grow. Blessed be.